So I'm doing a video on this article by The Hill called Seven Presidential Contenders for the Republicans in 2024. Former President Trump is still the dominant figure in the Republican Party, but his stranglehold is loosening. Trump backed candidates have had a mixed record in Republican primaries so far this cycle, with high profile losses in Georgia, Nebraska, and a key South Carolina district undercutting many other wins. The work of the House Select Committee on January 6, 2021, also places Trump's role in the insurrection squarely in the spotlight. To be sure, Trump leads early 2024 polls by a wide margin, but there is no guarantee that the ever unpredictable Trump will enter the race. And there is a growing consensus among Republican insiders that if he does, he will face a serious challenge. So, if the 2024 Republican nominee ends up being someone other than Trump, who might it be? The first person they have is Florida Governor Ron Desantis. DeSantis is Trump's most serious rival at this early stage. The Florida governor has a multi-layered appeal. Conservatives love his pushback against masks and vaccine mandates during the pandemic. He has embraced his culture wars with vigor, including his advocacy of legislation that liberal critics dub the Don't Say Gay bill. The mere fact that DeSantis sparked such ire from left leaning voters is almost certainly an asset in a Republican primary. More, more concretely, DeSantis is a prodigious fundraiser. He surpassed 100 million in his reelection coffers this spring. Some figures close to Trump believe DeSantis could be scared off and would be reluctant to enter a head-to-head race with the former president. But plenty of others think he is the clearest example of the kind of candidate, populist but disciplined, who would have a real shot of beating Trump. Former Vice President Mike Pence. Pence is in the spotlight, whether it's welcome or otherwise, this week. The January 6th committee's Thursday hearing was focused on Trump's efforts to pressure Pence to help overturn the election. Pence famously resisted, putting his life in danger in the process. Pence's steadfastness on that issue, though praised by many beyond the GOP, could be a problem in the presidential primary. Pence's main calling card in such a race would be his closeness to Trump while in office, but the most fervent Trump supporters won't easily forget what they see as a betrayal on January 6th. There are never Pencers out there for sure, and that will be a challenge to GOP strategist Brad Blakerman, but I don't think it is insurmountable. Others are not so sure Pence can get over the hurdle. Pence is a spent bullet, said one conservative leader supportive of Trump. He was a great vice president, but he has no grassroots support. He is the choice of the donor class. That is so ironic coming from somebody that supports Trump. Like, who do you think? You know what? I'm not even going to get into it. If you really believe Trump didn't have any donors backing him when he ran for president, especially the last time, I have nothing to say to you. Pence has distanced himself further from Trump in recent months, stating plainly that Trump was wrong to think he could overturn the election, and campaigning for incumbent Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, who Trump was desperate to oust. He is a canny politician that has deep roots in the religious right. It's just not clear how far those assets would take him in a crowded field. Oh, this is my favorite. Former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley. No one in Republican politics doubts that Haley, who was twice elected as South Carolina's governor before becoming U.S. ambassador to the United Nations during the Trump administration, has her mind set on higher office. Well, yeah, she's an ambitious politician. They always are looking for the next big step up. Haley has long been seen as a rising star. She was the first Republican governor of the Palmetto State, the first female governor, excuse me. The daughter of Indian immigrants, she was also viewed as an exemplar of how the GOP could reach beyond its white base. The thing about a lot of these candidates that are minorities is that a lot of analysis that's made toward them tries to cite the idea that, see, we're diverse, we welcome people from all ethnicities, but was there really anything having to do with actual minority support that got Haley her position? I mean, from what I remember, South Carolina is mostly white. I'm just saying you can have a diverse like a candidate who is a minority or a woman, and it doesn't automatically mean they're an example of what you can expect voting demographics to reflect. Um, she is just an attractive political figure, said Matt Makiawick, the chairman of the Travis County Republican Party in Texas. She is conservative, but she does that in a way that is persuasive. Pence has a line about being a conservative but not being in a bad mood about it, and Haley has that quality as well. Haley is distrusted in parts of Trump world, however, and her political judgment has proved questionable at times. In the immediate wake of the insurrection, she was very critical of Trump. In an interview with Politico, saying that he went down a path he shouldn't have, and we shouldn't have followed him, and we can't let that ever happen again. She later backed off amid a backlash by April 2021. She was saying she would not run in 2024 if Trump does. So that's the kind of stuff that just gets on my nerves, these people. You sit here and you give this big impromptu speech, or I guess it was an interview. You know, these remarks that are supposed to like strongly condemn the fact that Trump played a role in causing an insurrection. And then after you get a little bit of pushback for saying something that's correct, you go, I still support him. I'll still let him back him if he runs for president. In fact, I won't even run if he runs. Like, that's nuts. God, these people just they don't ever try to be courageous. Senator Ted Cruz. Cruz ended up in second place to Trump in the 2016 nominating process. Could he benefit from the GOP's tendency to nominate a figure who is seen as next in line? Maybe. That is true that happens a lot. Because if we're just going off of Republican patterns, you had McCain come in second place to Bush in 2000, then he got the nomination the next time around. Romney came in second place to McCain in 2008, and then he got the nomination the next time around. So, and go even further back, you had the older Bush come in second place in the 1980 Republican primary, and then after 8 years as VP, he took over as president. So that is a pattern that does make Cruz very likely to end. If Trump doesn't run, that is to be the nominee. If we're just going off of the way history repeats itself. Cruz is a down-the-line conservative and has pugnacious political persona. In his pugnacious political persona, nice alliteration, enthuses his supporters. But he also has a habit of rubbing people the wrong way. Senator Lindsey Graham joked years ago that if you killed Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate and the trial was in the Senate, nobody would convict you. Graham later apologized. Cruz's speech at the 2016 Republican National Convention, in which he consciously failed to endorse Trump, still sticks in the throats of many of the former president's supporters. Still, Cruz knows what it takes to build a presidential campaign. He's had national profile for years, and he's a fierce competitor. One added complication, he is up for re-election to the Senate in 2024. That will mess him up, because I think a lot of these, if you saw what happened with Rubio, for example, he ran for president the same year he was up for re-election to a second term in the Senate. He said, hey, I'm not going to run for that seat again. Then he lost. He filled out the deadline to get on that ballot, and he was back there for another, what's now, been 6 years for his second term in the Senate. So I think Cruz will probably, if he runs for president again, he's going to try to maybe get some law signed in Texas where you can run for president, run for Senate, because there are some states that are like that. I know that Biden got elected for another term in the Senate the same day that he was elected vice president, which is why he didn't end up even sticking around. So Cruz might try to do something like that. But the problem that Cruz has is that even though he's a good fundraiser, even though he's someone that is liked by a lot of the far right or whatever, he doesn't have the charisma, in my opinion, of a lot of other people. Like, I'm not a fan of Trump, but he's funny. When you listen to him speak, it's entertaining. Reagan was likable. Bush was also likable, even if, that they had that whole thing about like who you want to share a beer with. I just can't see that with Cruz. Like, I don't know anyone that says, oh, when he talks, he made this really good joke, or man, that was really interesting when he gave that speech about. Usually when I see him getting discussed, it's because of some bill he introduced, but I just don't see him as an effective, exciting public speaker. And I think that's going to play a big role. And if he doesn't get the nomination in 2 years, and this is the way I see it, he's either going to run again and Trump is going to is one he's going to lose or get further down than Trump does, and get out even, have an even worse showing than before, or he's gonna like come in second or third or fourth place to somebody else. I just can't see him getting it anymore. Like after that election cycle where I was really confident he was gonna win, it's been downhill ever since then. Just in terms of me seeing him as someone that's actually progressing in the way that he needs to mount a serious bid. Um, let's go to our next person. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Pompeo's presidential ambitions seemed crystal clear within a couple of months of President Biden assuming office. Pompeo was visiting Iowa and helping fundraise for a Republican in New Hampshire, traditionally the two first to vote states in the primary process. Pompeo's time as Secretary of State and prior to that CIA director gives him plenty of experience to highlight if the political conversation turns to foreign affairs, national security. The skeptics, Pompeo lacks charisma. They also know that he has never run for statewide elected office prior to his appointment as CIA director in 2017. He had served 3 terms in the House representing a Kansas district. Still, he is in many ways the rightful heir to the Trump legacy. He was responsible for most, if not all, of his foreign policy, and he understands Trump and Trump voters, said Makowak, I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name. I would not underestimate Mike Pompeo. Well, I'm going to underestimate him. He lacks charisma. Like I've never heard Pompeo speak and like been enthralled or interested in anything he's saying. I also believe that if he's the guy that's running on Trump's international views, you're going to see a lot of people running against him. It could be Rubio, it could be Rand Paul, it could be any of the other ones who are trying to like distance themselves from Trump. They're going to say, "Hey, remember when Trump's administration failed to secure a peace deal with North Korea? That was the guy who was in charge of it." If like you have Republican voters who like the tax cuts, they like all the anti-LGBT stuff, but I'm telling you, one of the few things that can get a lot of people rallied up to support a progressive person, a person like Rand Paul, is peace in international issues. And if you bring up the less desirable parts of Trump's international views, or rather what happened during those 4 years, they could really destroy Pompeo, which I don't think will be hard at all because, like, they bring up, oh, he has experience. Okay, Clinton had experience too. The difference between the two of them is that Clinton had much higher name recognition, and I can't go down the next 89 blocks and meet anyone that knows Pompeo. So I don't think he's going to make it. I'm going to underestimate him, and I don't feel bad at all for doing that. Senator Tim Scott. If Republicans want a nominee who can unite the pro-Trump and Trump skeptical wings of their party and perhaps broaden its appeal among the electoral at large, Scott could be a real contender. Conservatives like Scott's record and up from his bootstraps personal story, and even political opponents often like him personally. He is the sole black Republican senator as well. Scott worked with Senator Cory Booker on proposals for police reform for months in 2021, though the effort did not ultimately succeed. Tim Scott's potentially the best unifier candidate Republicans could have, said Doug Hay, a former communications director of the Republican National Committee. He is the antithesis of polarization. It's hard to find people with bad things to say about Scott. The doubt most often voiced about a potential presidential candidacy is whether he really wants it, though. Some who know him feel he'd be as happy returning to private life as he would be walking the West Wing. Let me tell you something why that candidacy is dead in the water. And you can get mad at me, you can call me whatever you want. I do not believe Republican voters are going to put a black person as their nominee for the presidency probably for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You're not going to see it happen. They'll have someone like Alan Keyes. They'll have someone like Carson. They'll run and they'll get a couple of votes because there are some people that are okay with it. But I don't see a black person winning a Republican presidential primary. Not at any point. I would go as far as to say I could live to be 70 or 80 and you still wouldn't see that happen. Because those voters don't like. Again, it's just my opinion. I don't think it'll happen. I don't see it, and I'm not trying to say that they're all a bunch of bigots or anything. I just don't think there's enough of them that are that open minded to do that. So it's just my opinion. And like I said, there are some that will support minority candidates. That's why, you had people like Cruz and Rubio get far. But I for the life of me, can't see them nominating an African American person for president. Not in 2024, not in 2028, not in 2032, not in 2036, not in 2040. It doesn't register to me. And I hope I'm wrong, but I can't see them doing that. Okay, we're on our last one, I think. Yeah, it is. Okay. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Noem took office in January 2019, but only really became to national attention when she railed against COVID-19 related lockdowns, insisting that more freedom, not more government, is the answer. She famously supported the Sturgis motorcycle rally going ahead in her state the summer of 2020. The event drew massive crowds but was linked to COVID-19 outbreaks far beyond South Dakota. If Noem decided to seek the White House, she would be one of the most ostensibly Trumpian candidates in the field. The former president appears to be something of a fan, having held out the hope that Noem might challenge incumbent Senator John Thune. She declined, and Thune easily won the Republican primary earlier this month. Noem would plainly be a risk, especially given her relative scant experience on the national stage. And South Dakota, far from the epicenters of media and money, is not the easiest state from which to launch a presidential campaign, just as George McGovern. But even some more moderate Republicans caution against underestimating Noem's star power and appeal to the party's grassroots. So, I think out of this list, Cruz is probably the one I would say has the biggest chance. But I don't like that they're gonna sit there and okay, I don't think Haley or Noam are gonna win because I don't think Republicans are gonna nominate a woman for president either. But just like ignoring that, I hate that they try to like this article tries to say, oh, she has a lack of national experience. Well, doesn't everybody at some point? I mean, I don't remember Bush 43 having national experience outside of just when he was governor, prior to getting elected president. So I don't see that as a legitimate thing that she should be worried about. And I think that one of the things she has to her back pocket as far as like an advantage over the other candidates is that she can say, "Oh, I was governor when they had that vaccine thing going on. I fought against it." Because you have a lot of voters who like, the anti-vaccine people that are in the GOP. So I think those types of things could work for her. And like I said, I think this whole list is going to get smushed if if Trump decides to run again. I just don't see them being over him in like 2 years from now. I don't think they will be. I shouldn't even say 2 years because they start announcing campaigns the year before the election. So we're probably about maybe like 8 or 9 months from when the first one announces that they're running, which is really crazy to think about. Um, I'd say the two people with the best chance if Trump doesn't run are DeSantis and probably Cruz. And I'll put Pence like behind those two because I think DeSantis can say I've governed, I've resisted stuff, just like how Noam can say that too. But he's in a bigger state than she is, so he gets more attention. And I think Cruz can say, I learned to love Trump. I embraced him because he did, regrettably, but he he did. So I think those two probably have the best chance. And then, but somebody like Pompeo, I'd go to sleep before that happens. So I hope you enjoyed this coverage on that article. It was pretty goofy, but it was fun to go over it.